Perfect. All right, JD, welcome. All right. So before we begin the class, I will just give a quick reminder to keep your mics muted. There will be an opportunity for everyone to ask questions and to um, make statements and comments as we move on with the class, and I will let you guys know when that's possible. Okay. And for now, what we're going to do is we're going to open the space. Okay. So I'll be chanting a mantra that's in Sanskrit to open the space for all of us. Om Nityanandam Paramasukaram Kevalam Jnanamutam Tandvatitam Gagadasarashram Tattvamashyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalalachalam Sarvari Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunavrhitam Sargurum Tam Namami Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigno Pashantayet. Okay, great. So let's get started. All right. All of you can see the screen, right? That's being shared. All right, perfect. Okay. So it is not a coincidence that all of you are here, specifically this class, um, because as I stated here, that everyone deserves to know the truth about how everything is being influenced in society, in our lives, things of that nature. Okay. Now, I do have an important question in the beginning that for each and every one of you, and that's going to be what exactly are your intentions by joining this class and at the end of this class? Because there are some people where they're just curious about being able to read their chart. They just want to know more information about their chart. Maybe it's more for fun. Maybe it's more for them to just learn the science and nature of the universe. Or there's some people who actually wants to take the route of becoming a professional astrologer. So while we're going through this class, keep in mind and contemplate on the idea. Like, what am I coming to utilize this knowledge for? Is it for um, you know, maybe making it as a kind of a side thing and eventually do it as like long in the future? Or is it something that you just plan on um, learning for yourself and maybe for people around you? So there is a difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology, especially specifically with the calendars. I'm sure you've seen where people say they're one thing in Western astrology and they are another thing in Vedic astrology, right? So for Western astrology, it's using a very stagnant calendar. The whole point of the calendar in the West is for economic purposes. It's meant for people to know when they're going to be working and when they're having their weekend. It's not necessarily a true calendar. And you can see this where I love using the example of Thanksgiving, that it only ever changed one date per year. It always go back and forth, and it's always on a Thursday, but it's never, if you look in the East and you see the celebrations that happen, it can happen next month, it can happen a week, before, it can be a completely different date and time of the year. And that's because they're following the lunar calendar. They're following the calendar as per the planets that are there in the sky. So those are like some main differences that I usually mention because people are usually utilizing the West calendar and saying, "Oh, my son has returned. Um, it's my birthday," for example, and not knowing that their birthday could have actually passed a week before. Their birthday can be a week later, starting at 7 a.m. and finishing at 7 a.m. the next day, and happening for that specific 24-hour period because your birthday is not when the sun returns on that date you were born. Your birthday is when the moon returns under the nakshatra or star constellation. That's when you were born. And you can see this even in Hinduism, where whenever they're mentioning about a deity or a god or goddess, they're always saying this god or this goddess or this dev or devata that was born under this nakshatra. They were born under Ashwini or they were born under Bharani. You will hear that the nakshatra they were born under, the star constellation, not specifically the date. So, one thing that I like to do when it comes to introduce astrology and speaking about astrology, and this goes when this comes with all my readings, I like to speak about things that are going to detox people from let's be honest, when it comes to Western astrology, it has become a pop culture, you could say, right? It's very shallow in a sense, very like surface level. You know your rising, you know your moon, you know your sun, and that's it. And this is who I am. This explains why, and it's so much more than that. I mean, you have Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, um, Mars, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu. Not even to mention the houses that they're sitting in, and then the sign. So the idea that a person has a particular sign assigned to them, meaning I am a Cancer, I am a Leo, it doesn't exist. Just because your sun is in that sign does not mean that I am this sign. Like that sentence alone does not exist. And I usually, and this is exploited um, because they know that us seekers, especially when we wake up and we start seeing that the world isn't the way it really is, they know that we're quick. We're like we become a sponge when we first wake up. And because we become a sponge, we want to grab every single thing that we can to identify ourselves and create a who we are. And the danger with that is that you end up taking all of this shallow information without any depth. And then you sound just like another person who's talking about something that doesn't exist. And this is also not great because this also takes away a lot of validity away from the science of astrology. A lot of people end up saying, "Oh, I don't believe in astrology because my last three exes wanted to know my birthday because they kept saying that I was a Scorpio and they don't like Scorpios," which again doesn't exist. So we will see that in the chart where we have all of the zodiacs in our chart. There's the reason why there's 12 houses. And because there's 12 houses, there's also 12 zodiac signs. So we are all the zodiac signs 24/7. Actually, Monday is Moon Day. Monday is dedicated to Shiva. That's why I fast every Monday. Tuesday is dedicated to Mangala, which, if you want to know the deity, is Hanuman. Wednesday is Mercury Day. And I'll go over the Sanskrit names of each planet. Thursday is Guru Day. Friday is Venus Day. Saturday is Saturn Day. And Sunday is Sunday, which is why originally Sunday is the first day of the week because everything starts with the sun. Sun is the king, right? So we have all the zodiac signs. The moment the sun rise, no matter where you are geographically, when if the sun is rising at 6 or 7, whatever, let's say today's a Thursday. When the sun rose today for you, that first hour or 45 minutes is dedicated to Guru. Then the next 45 minutes is dedicated to another planet. So that's where it gets more complex, and we'll speak about how that can be applied. Like, for example, if someone wants to take care of things with their romantic relationship, then they would do it on a Friday. That's the reason why you see most dates happen on a Friday, for example. Because that's Shukra day, Venus. Venus also represents liquidation. What day do most people get paid in the world? Friday. Everything is designed based on astrology, even though people don't see or don't have the knowledge or given the knowledge to make that connection. So, and also another thing about the zodiac signs when people are identifying themselves is people usually have the idea that sun represents who they are. And that's far from the truth because if you translate sun to soul, SOL, it represents the soul. You don't act based on your soul, you act based on your mind. Your soul, if you were acting based on your soul, majority of you would be living in some mountain up in the Himalayas somewhere away from society. You act based on your mind desires, not based on your soul desires. But whenever you are doing something that's based on your soul's desire, that's related to it, that's where you may feel alive, energized, and feel like this is who I am, because that desire was created at the time that you were leaving the previous body to enter into a new body. That is what creates the soul desire. That's what creates the you wanting to reincarnate on planet Earth. Okay. And even again, I always love connecting astrology with real life things where you can look and see it or you already seen it. What do most monks wear? The color. Can anyone answer in the chat? What is the color that monks wear? Saffron orange. And what is the color of? Okay. I don't recall seeing a black, orange, red. Yes. I'm listen, I'm sure there's black uh only colored clothing monks, I'm sure. But for the majority it's red, orange, yellow, saffron orange. Why? What's the color and the shade of the sun? Orange, red, yellow. It's a constant reminder that they are burning their karma. It's a constant reminder that they're here only for their soul desire, for their soul purpose. It's the reason why they're wearing that color. Okay. So that would be the people who's really acting based on their soul desire. So let's see here. So another thing I wanted to mention is to be careful who reads your chart. And this is really important because your chart is your body. And I'll explain this in another slide, but your chart, you're allowing someone to, look into your life. Nothing is hidden there unless they don't have the intuition to be able to read your chart along with the system, then it won't really matter. But still, um, there's so many times, too many times actually, where I've had people come to me to do a reading or for education, and they've had people telling them some usual generic things I hear a lot from people. Oh, I see that you're a Scorpio, and this is a guy giving it to a woman, and saying all of these kind of inappropriate things. And what ends up happening is it's creating a very People can easily take advantage, right? They may not really be even reading your chart, they're just saying whatever that they're saying, and in order to like gain some kind of control over you. And you know, they're all adults, right? So they have to take responsibility. And the grahas, the planets are watching. They will get karma for it. That's not the issue. The issue is that how it affects the person who's receiving the information. When the person's receiving the information, one of the biggest things that my teacher, he's the biggest um, astrologer and from India, and he always told me that you should never give any kind of like giving a reading is basically like being a therapist. You cannot negatively impact the person you're giving a reading to. Because when you do that, not only does it affect them, it also ends up affecting you. So, like, for example, things that I take into account, their age, their gender, their desires, things of this nature. You know, if I'm speaking to a young woman, which is usually the case, then if I see something about miscarriage or abortion or something about family or something of that nature, whether I know if they want family or not, I'm going to be careful to say or not say something. Withholding information is not like a negative thing, it's to protect the person. And if they were an older person, where most likely they're close to menopause or they already had menopause, they're on that age, then I'll be more than happy to go ahead and bring up those things because it's something that they already dealt with in the past. I'm not instilling any fear. And so a lot of people who do readings, it doesn't even have to only be Vedic astrology readings. It can be tarot card readings, any kind of readings. One of the things that's very prominent is that they learn from the best. And who else instills fear into society better than the news? They use the news. They use the same tactic the news use, which is fear base, in order to get people to believe more of what they're saying. Okay. So just be careful with who you allow to read your chart because even when it comes to a woman, and I mean by birth, of course, I want to respect everyone here just in case if anyone here is, you know, identify something else. When a astrologer or even a reader gives some kind of information that impacts especially a woman in a reading, especially with astrology, especially Vedic astrology, if they get negatively impact, there is a chance, and I'll give you one example. I was doing a reading where I saw that the children of that woman was going to pass before her. Obviously, I didn't tell her that, but I told her, you know, for the next few years, it'll be really good for you and the family to go on trips and 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 do some activities together. You know, you guys have a bucket list and do some things of that nature. That way, the moment the child pass, they can at least remember that the astrologer back then allowed me to create all of these experiences because he told me to go and do these activities that it'll be good for me. And now I see why. If I was to go ahead and tell her straight up the truth, she can accept it. She can be like, okay, thank you for letting me know. But somewhere deep down inside, especially with emotions, you know, how women experience emotion much stronger. A woman has the ability to curse someone. And when they curse someone versus a male, it's 1,000 times much more stronger. That's the reason why, for example, whenever you see an image of, I don't know how many you're familiar with, but if you ever see an image of Shiva and Parvati's kids. One is Ganesha. He has an elephant head. The other one is like, they all look different than normal kids. And the reason why is because when Shiva was enraged because Parvati killed herself, because she wasn't he she her father didn't invite her husband Shiva to the wedding. She burned herself in the fire. And he was so enraged after all of the commotion, he went in the cave to go and meditate. And there was one rishi that went, or one sage that went to go and wake him up from his meditation. The only thing that happened is that Shiva's third eye just opened and a beam came out and just burned him to death. And he was so enraged that he didn't notice that Parvati already reincarnated as another woman and was trying to get his attention. Hey, I'm here. I'm fine. I'm safe. But what ended up happening? The wife of that sage told her, because of your husband, I am now not only a widow, I am barren. I cannot bear any children because now my husband's gone. So she cursed Shakti, she cursed Parvati to not be able to bear children also. And that's the reason why they have to infuse their energy together in order to make children. And that's the reason why the children ends up looking the way they do, one with an elephant head and so forth. So now we're going to more of the practicalities as the different ways that Vedic astrology influences your day-to-day life. Okay. So here's a few different examples I have that I love to share about how um, Vedic astrology influences your day-to-day life. This is going to be fun. So let's start with the thumb. Actually, no, I'll let you guys choose. I'll let you guys choose. You guys choose. Go ahead. Put in the chat which one you want me to go over first that you see here. Thumb is cool. Okay. We'll go over the thumb. Since oh wait, someone said walking first. Okay, let's do the walking first. Someone mentioned walking. Two other people went walking. Okay. So walking. So apart from it being, as per Ayurveda, the most sattvic energy exercise that you can do. Sattvic meaning purest exercise that you can do. That's great not only for your body, but is also good for your manas, which means mind in Sanskrit. So when you go to walk, let's say you are working on a project. Let's say you want to write. Let's say you want to, you're trying to come up with some idea, but you feel a bit stuck, like you have some brain fog or something. What do you end up doing? Anyone answer? What do you end up doing when you feel like you have a little bit of a brain fog or something? Exactly. You go for a walk. But why does a walk help so much when it comes to you having a brain fog or creative stuck? It's because when you're walking, you're allowing air to pass through your nostrils. You're breathing much more when you're walking versus when you're sitting. You're activating your nostrils. And astrology is not only about what's happening in your life, why it's happening, the different themes. I can look all the way down to the quality of your veins, the quality of your blood, your stomach, your spine. There's a thing called medical astrology. Okay. So your this part of the nose is ruled by Mangala. Mangala in Sanskrit means Mars. This is ruled by Mars. The inside of the nose, the nostrils, is ruled by Jupiter, also known as Guru in Sanskrit. So what do we know about Jupiter, the quality of Jupiter? Jupiter is connected to ether, which is space, akasha. So whenever you go for a walk, you're activating and connecting yourself to that akasha. It's clearing up all of that brain fog. And akasha, space, intuition, is how we get those ideas to come and land in us. So when we clear up all of that brain fog, all of that mind and junk, we do that through walking. And that's what clears up our mind and allows us to then receive that knowledge, that intuition. Okay. So that's one thing about walking. Actually, like I have Mars in the third house. And every time when I was in New York, every single time I would walk, almost every single time when I would walk during around like in the afternoon, someone would pull up with their car. It was just some stranger and ask me a question. They need help. Like, oh, you have dreads or, you have locks. Do you know where I can get weed? Like, or, oh, do you know where this address is in this town or whatever the case may be? And if you look at it in my third house, the third house represents short distance travel, meaning walking. And so whenever I initiated to walk, third house is also the house of communication. So whenever I was initiating my walk outside of the house, the sign that's there is Virgo. It's originally coming from the house of people who are underprivileged, people who are dealing with obstacles, people who needs help. And so naturally, more times than not, when I would walk outside or do short distance travel, someone always stopped me. It happened if I was going to Manhattan every single day, um, 2 years ago. Almost every single day I was going to Manhattan, and I got stopped at least between 2 to 3 times a day. Not exaggerating, 2 to 3 times a day, because I would stay in the city all day long. This is a perfect example of how you can see this activating or how this is influencing things in your life. So now the other one that wanted to be mentioned was thumbs. Okay. So thumbs. As I said, there is medical astrology. So we have my hand, right? This is uh ruled by Chandra. I'll start mentioning the Sanskrit names now. Chandra is moon. Here is Buddha. This is Mercury. This is obviously Venus, ring finger, right? Then we have Saturn, Shani. Venus is Shukra. The pointing finger is Guru, Jupiter. And the thumb is Mars. Whenever we are wanting to give support, I kind of gave the answer away, so I'm not going to have you answer because I have the word support under thumbs up. But whenever we are, at a sport event, supporting our child, supporting our spouse, whatever, or even if you're like telling someone good luck or giving them the A-OK, majority of the time, people always doing this. People don't know why they do this, but they're doing this. Why? Mars is associated with the soldier, the athlete, the commander. Mars is all about passion, energy, and strength. So even when you see those plushy things where a person puts their hand inside at the baseball game and and it's a big, huge thumbs up, people don't know why, but it's because they're giving energy, passion, and strength to their team, to their partner. to their friends whenever they're doing this. It's because of Mars. And Mars, it's the most violent planet in the chart of all the other planets. Mars is because it's energy, it activates. That's the reason why whenever you see someone meditating and they're connecting their fingers together, what are they doing? They're doing this. They're activating the different mudras, but it's always activating it with the thumb. You never see them doing this. You don't do this. This is Jupiter, so when you're doing this, it's connecting you to what? It's connecting you to the heavens. It's connecting you to source, to Akasha through space. And I'll give you a little tidbit that I learned from my teacher. Because this is Moon and because this is Mercury, this blocks. You don't want to do this unless you have an intention. If you are, and this is great, you can do this any time of the day, no matter what you're doing. If you feel like you're overthinking, you have racing mind, and you're having uncontrollable thoughts, just do this. Doing this, using Mars to block your Mercury. Mercury is analytical thinking. Moon is all of the thoughts that come in. So you're blocking all of the garbage and all of your overthinking when you do this. Now you can do this in a dedicated time where you maybe do it for 5 minutes a day. But the great part about this is that you can do it anywhere. And you can do either or you can do both hands at the same time. And you can do this on the bus or anywhere else. It's really, really good. Let me see the messages here. Yes, breath work. Someone said for brain fog, breath work helps. Yes, it does. And again, breath work is doing what? It's activating your wisdom, your higher knowledge, your ether. It's connecting your Jupiter and your nostrils. Why can't you use your pointer finger on your japamala? So usually when someone's doing japamala, meaning it's so funny, I just so happen to have my mala here. But usually it's way smaller than this. Usually, whether it's Buddhism, Hinduism, any other culture, usually they're doing this, right? It would be kind of hard to do this with your pointer finger. That's first off. That's one. Second, when they're internally chanting the mantra internally for a japa mala, um, using your Mars, you're using it to activate also each mantra that you're saying internally as well. And there's a reason why usually people start off with chanting the mantra verbally before chanting it internally, because it takes more effort to chant it internally. Because you have all of the other thoughts and stuff coming in, you'll start chanting it and then you'll start thinking about what you're having for breakfast. So, verbalizing the mantra allows you to be 100% focused or 100% aware of what you're chanting. After you've done it for some period of time, then over time, then eventually you can start practicing it, doing it internally. Oh, the mudra. This one. I actually don't know the name of this mudra. But if you were to search up like thumb blocking pinky mudra, I'm sure you'll find it. He never told me the name. He's kind of like one that's like full of like techniques and all the best stuff, which we'll go over some of them. Now, payday. Payday, I already mentioned a little bit. Friday, if you wanting to, if someone wanted to reconcile a relationship, especially a romantic relationship, as I mentioned earlier, at the time that the sun is rising in your geographic location, The first 45 minutes is Shukra. There are two other times during the day where it's considered Shukra hour. So imagine every single hour of the day, you're going through a different energy. And that's the reason why one moment you can feel like you want to entertain yourself and eat ice cream, and another moment you feel like calling your mother and speaking with her, and another moment you feel like doing this. So Friday, Shukra, Venus is the significator of relationships. Okay. So that's why most dates that happen that day, that's the reason why people get paid the most on Friday because it's liquidation. But some people get paid on Thursday. That's also explained. Jupiter Day, Thursday, Guru Day. Jupiter is what? Significator of wealth. So some people get paid on Thursday. Okay. And then I added a bonus at last minute. I don't know why the picture is not showing up, but suffering. And I put eighth to ninth. So this is one of the reasons why people need to experience rock bottom. Not everyone, but there's some people who need to experience rock bottom in order to then turn towards spirituality or God or whatever. They're all the same thing. I put eighth because eighth is the eighth house, meaning it's the house of ups and downs, unexpected events, emergencies, um, death and rebirth, secrets, occult mysticism. Occult and mysticism may sound great. It may sound like, wow, I get to learn, the truth of the universe, and then you end up finding out that the world is more against us, not existence, but the people in power is much more against us than you realize. And for some people, they may not have the mental capacity to even handle that kind of information, right? So when people hit rock bottom, whether it's through unexpected events, finding out the truth, learning some kind of secret, going through ups and downs, emergencies in their life, what ends up happening? They end up looking up because they're at rock bottom. And when they look up, where do they look up to? To the next house. Next house is the ninth house, which is ruled by Jupiter, Guru. So sometimes when people are on rock bottom, they end up encountering a teacher, a mentor, spirituality, yoga, going on retreats, a pilgrimage, overseas travel, things of this nature. Even learning about higher wisdom and higher knowledge or religion because of this as well, because of suffering. And it is something that's very interesting because it is something that people need, I feel, need to have a better relationship with. A lot of times people are very adamant on avoiding suffering. And it doesn't mean that someone should go out there and try to find problems. It should mean that whenever suffering does come in a person's life, that they understand what is it doing for them. And even though it can be painful, it's not a fun thing, but it's the very thing that gives us expansion as human beings, right? If everything was perfect, we wouldn't be pushed to do anything. We would probably be just sitting down, eating all day, and watching entertainment, right? But we have discipline and we have motivation and we have goals for that very reason, because sometimes we're pushed to an edge where we then move to the ninth house of higher knowledge and higher wisdom. Okay, so now we're going to start getting into a bit more of the education now that we got kind of the introduction stuff out of the way. So, one of the most important things you need to know about your landing on planet Earth, the planets were not located where they were at the time of your birth because you were landing on planet Earth at a time, location, and date. The planets were in those specific locations to accommodate your requests of you landing on planet Earth. There's a difference. A lot of times people feel like they are an accident. They feel like they came here by chance and they're just trying to find out their purpose on here on planet Earth. So I'm going to repeat the statement again. Let me just let this person in. The planets were not located at the time of your birth because they just so happened to be there at the time, and that's when you came in. The planets were where they were because of you. Every single star, every single planet, every single placement that you have in your chart, it was all to accommodate your landing on planet Earth, not the other way around. That's one very important thing. It's very liberating also, right? So you're not an orphan and you're not an accident. Okay. Vishnu is, we can say, the celestial creator of astrology. We all know everything is God, source, cosmos, doesn't matter. We all know God is a frequency in which astrology allows us to tap into. Think of planets as the agents of Vishnu and Brahma. They hold the divine key to existence and to maintain the divine order. And astrology is the snapshot of the order that divine wants us to follow. The existence of each star in the sky is no accident. It's supposed to be where the great creator wants it to be. If each pattern in the stars is a vortex of a lesson, then planets are the energies that activates that energy for us humans, that activates those lessons in our lives. It doesn't matter how rich or how materialistic you are, the moment you start studying astrology, something triggers in you. Actually, we have a vein in our hands. It's activated when we start studying astrology. It's it's known as the Jyotish vein, the astrology vein. That's why it's called Nadi, one of the branches of astrology, Jyotish. And once it becomes activated, simply just by you being able to look at a chart, you just know what's going on in a person's life. You know exactly what's going on. And there are methods to opening that. Even for me, when I became an astrologer, the name that I have, Parashara, or Shri Nithya Parasharananda, was given to me in 2017. And I was never into astrology. I didn't care. I didn't know anything about astrology, thank gosh, because it would have been Western first, and I would have needed to like relearn things or clean up the slate. But luckily, it took 3 years, and then I became a Vedic astrologer. How? It just landed in me. I was like doing marketing at the time, learning marketing, and I just stopped everything and I was like, I want to become a Vedic astrologer. It was just very random. It all intuition. Um, and funny enough, the father of astrology in India, his name is Parashara. So the name that I was given was leading me to this path of becoming a Vedic astrologer. And it didn't happen to me till 3 years later. It's not like I got the name Parashara and then searched it up and he was like, oh, he's a Vedic astrologer. Okay, I'll become one too. It didn't happen like that. It happened organically. And in terms of methods to opening your Jyotish vein, your your nadi, in order to start being able to start reading charts and things of that nature, it's something that I just started the Vedic Astrology School, which has been a very, very large request. And at the end, I will send a link for you people to register and sign up. So here's some important information about astrologers. Shiva and Parvati, they had inflamed great curiosity amongst the Dev and Devatas. And since their relationship was charged with volcanic passion, knowing its detail was very, very entertaining for people. At the time, the all-seeing eye of Jyotish was so powerful that with its help, astrologers were able to perceive all of the intimate details of the divine couple's daily life. For amusement, people would come to the astrologers to hear those details. When Shiva discovered that astrologers had brazenly intrude into their personal life, he became furious and cursed all the astrologers. Since then, Shiva's wrath has not permitted astrologers to interpret horoscopes identically and agree with each other on astrological interpretations. Their ability to obtain omniscience with the help of Jyotish was lost forever. With or without considering Shiva's curse, it is easy to see how astrological combinations may lead to contradictory interpretations, and how different astrologers looking at the same chart may give polar opposite interpretations. For example, it is not unusual to find six planetary indications for prosperity and another six for poverty in the same chart. In this situation, the astrologer's ability to look beyond the mere calculations is called forth. Intuition or divine insight is vital for the correct interpretation. And this is where the activation of your nadi comes in. But that also gets developed through what we call sadhana drishti. Sadhana means a spiritual practice, some kind of daily spiritual practice that you do. And drishti is having all of your focus onto one thing. And this is something that you would do daily. Doesn't have to be long, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, but something that it will develop your intuition, and there are different methods for that. Genuine astrologers have to use rational methods and intuitive powers to complement one another, and only those who become adept at both these approaches to divination can ever become fit replicals for the Jyotir Vidya, which means the lore of light. An important practice that develops divine intuition is devotion. Therefore, it would be wrong to limit Jyotish to a strictly scientific domain, ignoring an essential part of mastery and interpretation that, as we all shall see, is very tightly connected to devotion. Astrology is the study of our previous actions and how it divines our path to ultimately to God. All other mundane matters come later, like wealth, status. If astrology doesn't liberate you to become a better human being, then there's no point in learning it. Career, marriage, and children do become important in certain times, but these areas of our lives should always help us evolve spiritually. Even if you're a family person, you have to pay bills, your spouse, you have to look after your dog, looking for promotion. Ultimately, it should always be in mind that despite doing all of those things, you're trying to do these actions to get closer to God, source, cosmos, whatever you want to call it. I have to do this karma to pay my previous debts off to get closer to God. And just a quick reminder, because I see this around a lot on social media, karma is not English, it is Sanskrit. So the idea that people throw around, the English westernized idea of karma, meaning, oh, you put out bad, you'll get bad back. It doesn't work that way. Karma is Sanskrit, so you would actually need to learn the Sanskrit definition, not the American or westernized definition of karma. A lot of times in Sanskrit, it's really hard to translate a word into English because English is very, very poor in that nature when it comes to translating Sanskrit. Sanskrit is very, very expressive. It can have multiple different meanings, just one word alone. So sometimes people misinterpret the words. So ultimately, I'm trying to do these actions to get closer to God. I have to do this karma to pay my previous debts off to get closer to God. So now we're going to go over some basic Sanskrit words here. Okay. So we have houses, the different houses in the chart. First house, second house, third house, all the way to the 12th house. It is called bhava. So whenever I mention bhava, then you will know I'm speaking about the house. But don't worry, I'll remind you. Zodiac sign in Sanskrit is Rashi. Planet is Graha. And the reason why it's more appropriate to call planets Graha rather than planets is because whenever we are saying planets in a chart, we're also including the sun, Surya. But Surya is not a planet. Surya is a star, and he's the king. So it is more appropriate to say Graha. That way, see, planet means empty vessels moving through space. Graha means that which moves across the sky. So there's also a lot more reverence towards the planets. It's not just calling them things that are floating out there and has, like meanings. Then we have star constellations, nakshatra or nakshatras. And then we have rising sign. People love to use rising, ascendant. The original name is Lagna. Lagna means that which is attached to you, meaning the karma that you came down with together in the body that you're in now. That's the reason why Lagna or rising or ascendant is always in your first house. Because your first house is what? It's you. It's your body, it's your head, it's the way you think, the things that you attract in this life. So what is a birth chart? A birth chart is essentially your body. That's it. It's your body. It's kind of interesting. People, they go. It's actually very heavy in Chinese culture too, where they would go to an astrologer or to a psychic, usually an astrologer, and they would find out what would be the best way for them to get plastic surgery on their face or to fix their body in order to influence their outcomes in their life because they know that their body is the vessel in which everything manifests in their life. So when I say your birth chart is your body, it ultimately means that your body is the source of everything that you experience. Okay. I'll give you one example. When I started living in India in 2017, my mother took two tests 2 years before, and then I think during that year, or maybe the year before, she failed it twice. And I'll show you guys in a second. Maybe I have it here. The next one is a chart. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool, cool. I'll show you that. So this is I'll explain this in a second. So my a mother in general exists here. This is the fourth house. Okay. And I'm actually gonna pull up my iPad so that way I can. draw for you guys on the screen. While it's connecting, I'll explain for now. Okay. So, mother exists here. There's many different ways you can see mother. This is one of the basic ones. I am here. Let's say this is my chart, right? I'm here. This is the first house. You can literally make any house the ascendant. You see the AS here is ascendant. You can literally make any house the ascendant, and I'm able to tell everything about that person in your life. So let's say if you wanted me to give some information about your mother, for example, or to look into your mother's life, then I would simply take this and move it here. Okay. So everything is connected to each other. That's the reason why when people say that they disown their parents or they don't talk to them anymore, I tell them that's fine, but the things they do still influences you because they are you and you are them. You guys are always connected, no matter what. So this is the body, first house. I started working on my body during that year between 2017 2018, doing yoga every day, which I do till now, puja, kriya, all of these different things. If my mother is here, 10 places away from my mother is her career and her status. So if we look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what activates her career? How I tend to my body. So because I started working on my body, I was doing yoga every day, cleansing every day, all of these different things, it increased her career. It activated her career. Okay. So this is a very direct example of how someone's chart is their body and how they are the source of everything they experience. I like to call what a person experiences, I like to call it themes, meaning that in the first house, there is a certain kind of theme that they end up attracting in their life because all the places, people, and experiences they end up experiencing in this life will be coming from here and then the rest of the chart. So now we're going to start going over the charts now. Okay. So let's see. I have a no, we're saving the charts for last. Did we read the chart yet? Not yet. We're doing it now. When the vein was activated, can you view your chart as clearly as others? Can you view your chart as clearly as others? Well, the thing is that I don't know any other Vedic astrologers apart from my teachers, my seniors. So can I read it as clear as them? I'll give you an example. Because even after this class, I have a class with my new teacher. So after I'm done with you guys, I'm on another 2 hours of astrology. I'm like all day astrology right now. Um, I was in her class in December, and she was giving us some testing. So she would put a random chart. It can be a celebrity, it can be a serial killer, whoever. And she had us interpret the chart and then tell us anything about the chart. Every single time I got something right about the chart. That's the sadhana drishti and works. That's without my notes. That's without, any idea of who, even if they're female, male, whatever. Just being able to look at a chart, I was able to pick up if they were a performer, if they had children, um, and whatever other charts we looked at. Okay. So I'm connected now. I'm gonna come here so I can just on my iPad so that way I can draw on the screen for you guys. And I also have two other charts to produce. They gave me their information a little bit later. And the one whoever chart this is, I'm gonna have you unmute and I'm gonna interact with you. Okay. Get any other birth information here. All right, cool. So we'll go over these two first. And I'm actually gonna get my notes. I'm gonna show you when I first became a Vedic astrologer, I was obsessed. I mean, I'm still obsessed, but I studied from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day in 2020. Every day. Unless I like broke to like have lunch. I'll show you the results of that right now. One second. Um, These are all my notes from from that year. 2020 notebooks, and they're old at this point. But I mean, it was a lot of interpretation, a lot of studying. Um, it's not something where I like started watching a YouTube video, learn the basics, and like, okay, I'm ready. No, it's something that's, you really gotta you really gotta grind to get it all in your head. So whenever I'm doing a reading, I use my notes to like help and guide. And it's something that you guys will experience too. How many of you are actually how many of you are actually interested about learning astrology, like whether it's for yourself or to do it professionally? Maybe you're thinking about changing careers. I don't know. Um, how many of you are personal or professional? Okay, all of you are interested in learning astrology for all those reasons. Okay. Okay, wow. I guess I started the school at the right time. You know how many years people have been asking me to start a school? Oh, and while I'm going to the slide now, I'm almost there to start drawing and directing you guys um on the charts. You can, if you have any questions, you can ask me now. Just raise your hand up, okay? So Danielle, I see that you have your hand raised. I guess that was a response to my question. But if any one of you have a question, you can raise your hand. Either raise your hand or ask it in the chat. Either or is fine. Yeah, the thing is, you'll be able to follow to a degree. I won't say you won't be able to follow at all. The basics you'll be able to follow. In terms of things that I'm gonna go over, like in terms of like planet placements and things like that, or zodiac signs, that's something that's gonna be really pertaining to that individual. Okay. We'll go over it. We'll go over it now. Because the thing is that I'm gonna show it to you guys. I'm gonna quickly stop sharing the screen. I'm gonna show it to you guys, the software that I use. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm gonna show it to you guys. Okay. Yeah, the first person we're going over is Monica. Hmm. So I'm gonna close the program. I'm gonna open it up, and I'll explain to you the software that I use. Omni Vasquez, you're good. I see your message. Everyone is, well, I guess you're muted in a way. You're not connected to the audio. So you're not necessarily muted. You're more like not connected to the audio, thus you don't have the possibility of using a mic. All right, the software. Every time when I open it up, change to a different um uh, this is Mercury here. Um, and I can actually show you the process of producing the two charts I have. The two people that I have their charts to produce don't mind. Okay. So this is the paid software. It's not a software where you go online, you go to 10 different websites and you get 10 different results or five different results. Some the same, some different, some similar. The reason why you get different results is because they're free. They don't keep things updated. Everything in the cosmos is constantly expanding. So you can't expect it to be the same. There was one time I made a very rookie mistake. I was trying to figure out, I wonder where Saturn is right now. And because the software is only on my laptop and I was out, I thought that I can just go on my phone and trust the internet and put in what house is Saturn in right now and look and see, okay, yeah, it's showing me right now uh, in the sky that it's in the 11th house in Cancer. And then I told my friend, because I was speaking to an Vedic astrology colleague, the only one that I have at the time. And she was like, no, it's not. And I was like, oh, I'm using this. Of course, the information is wrong. So I do not trust websites where the most common one I've heard over the years is cafe astrology. Oh my gosh, the amount of times I've heard that. Um, so this is a paid software. It is a few $100s. So there are other softwares that I think are a little cheaper. There is one that is friends with my teacher. He created a software called Cosmic Insights, and it produces the same results as on here. So I know I can trust that one for anyone to recommend. But um, also producing charts for people, I do it for free. I do it. I always go on Facebook and like, hey, someone need their chart produced or something, and I produce it because it can be very daunting when you don't have the accurate information of your chart and you end up getting misinformation. And then the worst thing you want to do is go online and start searching up individual things. Like, my Mars is in the seventh house. What does this mean for my relationships? You do not want to do that. For one, you're going to get a ton of opinions, a ton of people who think they know what they're talking about. And then third, you're just going to get so confused. You're not going to know what's right and what's wrong. You don't know where they're getting their information from. So you got to be really careful when it comes to producing your own chart. Um, I'll have the access for you guys in a second for you guys to um, register for the school. At the moment, let me just show you the process of producing a chart because I have two more to produce because they sent it a bit later. They didn't see my message until last minute. So let's see. I come here, I choose the gender. I should have got their name from their registration, but it's okay. I'll just put Elevate Consciousness for now. 1985. And I think this is just as important. I think full transparency and like just understanding how the process is, especially if you're looking to become an astrologer yourself, is important. 14. Let's see. Colorado. Okay. Colorado Springs. Choose the C, and boom, we have their chart. Okay. And save that. And I'll do one more. I had to extend the amount of people who was able to. Oh, there was one actually that didn't give me their birth information. Dawn, are you here? Dawn, if you are here, because I don't see the name specifically in the oh, is it Omni Vasquez? Is that you, Dawn? No, no Dawn here. Okay. All right. I think Dawn's not here, which is fine. I'll just let her know that we're going over charts now. Either way, the recording will be available, but
Mhm.
we'll be going over her chart because she hasn't sent me her information.
What is
So
that? Oh,
yeah, this is for the VIP people, the ones who got the VIP pass. We're going over their charts, and there was a limit of how many VIPs can be there. That way, we can use the time accordingly. Okay.
what do I need to send?
So let's go back and start with Monica. All right, I should be able to write. Let's see. A little pen here. Maybe I'm on the wrong.
Uh,
Oh yeah, I am on the wrong one. Okay.
huh?
14.3. There we go. Perfect. Got it. Okay. So let's share it now. I'll share it. I thought I was sharing. Hold on 1 second. So here we have our first chart, Monica's chart. So let's see here. So the fun thing that we're gonna do is I'm not gonna have Monica ask about her chart. I'm gonna have everyone else ask about the chart. So what questions do you have that like let's say if you were to put yourself in the shoes of this chart, what questions would you have or you would want to know about this chart if you were looking at the chart for the first time organically like this? Mars, Saturn, and 12 looks interesting. What house she in today? Um, yeah, Mars, Saturn conjunction in the 12th house looks interesting. It is interesting because you know what what that shows me? That shows me a person who whenever you know how people can be like a workaholic where they may be a workaholic like in the workplace. They may be a workaholic um like everyone sees that they're a workaholic and people just know like oh that person just loves to work. They're always busy. This kind of chart, this kind of placement, this is the kind of placement where a person gets emotional nourishment from being in isolation and doing and being a workaholic in isolation. So one of the ways that this can be seen is, for example, let's say a person was a what do you call them? A telecommunicator, like a person who like speak to people on the phone, like customer service in a way. That's one example, right? Because they're working all the time, but no one sees them. Yeah, like work from home and always see them. Then they never see them, but they're always working when they're alone, you know? And if they're not doing that, then what are they doing? They're probably thinking of something to do, basically. And the reason why is because Saturn is like cogs. You know what cogs are? Like those metal cog things that allow machines to operate. You have cogs is Saturn. Why? Cogs is metal. Saturn is the farthest planet away, means from the sun. Means what? It's the coldest planet. It's the lowest planet. So when you bring Mars into the mix, do I have a pen here? I don't have a pen here. But imagine I have a pen here. A pen. The ink, the pen itself is Saturn. The ink inside the pen is Mars. Mars represents oil. Mars represents ink. Why do you think it's so popular for people to write down what they want to manifest? What does Mars represent? You remember? Energy, passion, strength. Whenever you are writing the things you want to manifest, you're giving energy and strength to that thing you want to manifest. Now, what's even more powerful is to know what color to write it in based on your chart. And it will work for other people more than other people. There's for some people, in general, it's great to do. But there are some people in their chart where it works for them much more stronger than other people. Ah, holistic wellness. Okay, you're done. If you can send me your birth information, you can send it to me directly here, like direct message here, location, time, um, and date of birth, year and everything, and I'll produce your chart. So, yeah, that's the perfect example of, you know, the whole writing thing. But yeah, Mars and Saturn, when those energies come together, whether they're aspecting each other or they're conjunct, it basically creates what? A machine. It creates a machine. A machine doesn't get tired. A machine doesn't have any energy. You just put fuel and it keeps going and going and going. And so that's one of the ways that I interpret it. Okay, alcoholic. Not alcoholic, my bad. Workaholic. Which is funny though, because I don't know what planet is transiting right now, but the 12th house is also the house of addictions. And so I don't think I said that word by mistake. Not saying that she's that, but I'm just connecting with, that house. And that house is the house of escapism. Because the 12th house right here, this house right here, is the house, it's the highest moksha house, the highest enlightenment house, liberation house. Is the house where um you are, going in isolation and gaining enlightenment. So, for example, the monks that I mentioned, they're in isolation, but you also have other ways that people get self-realization, jails, hospitals, like that is also isolation. Foreign travel, they're going to an isolated place or to a place they're unfamiliar with. Okay. So, what is your, do you have a response to what I was saying about the workaholic and isolation, Monica, for your chart? Super on point. And there you go. And it's it's not like you need to have the basic foundation. You work from home. Okay. You need to have the basic foundation because a lot of people, when they're just starting out, they would look at this house like, okay, let me see about the career. This is the house of career. It's the house of um their duty in society, their karma. This is known as the karma house. So it means that the karma that you're here to fulfill society. This is how the society and the community views you. Okay. And someone would just look there and say whatever they see there. But the moment I saw that placement, when the person mentioned it, I knew, okay, workaholic. But that's where all the basics come in. Just by knowing all of the basics, you can easily come and say these simple predictions. You'll be able to just know exactly what's going on. Aspects, aspects, and so it will be in the course. It will be in the course in the class in the glimpses of astrology, glimpses Vedic Academy. Um, I will come out with one video a week starting probably today or tomorrow in the academy for whoever signed up today. But when you're referring to aspects, aspects is a bit more is a not advanced, but it's a bit more complex, meaning there are things you need to know. Every single graha, meaning planet, has a different aspects based on their, let's see. So let's say Mars here. Mars aspects 4 places from itself, 8 places from itself, and 7 places from itself. Every single planet always aspects 7 places from itself. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is aspecting here. That means that it means what? Mars is what? The soldier, the athlete, the warrior. It means that Mars is look, that's where their opponent is. That's where their opponent is, the one that they're fighting or going against. What is this house about? Well, for starters, Capricorn is here, which means their work. And that means the opponent may be something dealing with underprivileged people, dealing with people who has illnesses or diseases, or people who are dealing with debt, people who are dealing with obstacles. And so somehow, some way, she could be relieving people from those obstacles. She's being the person between them and the obstacle in order to relieve them from those situations that they're experiencing in their life. The sixth house is also the house of a healer as well. That's the house where Rudra comes from. Rudra is seen walking around with a bag of medicine. If you I don't know if any of you saw the image of in the beginning of the music that was playing, probably not, but it's the energy of Rudra. So then we have Mars aspects four places from itself. Why? So there's a thing called significator. Okay. I'll say the Sanskrit name in a few, but for now it's a significator. Each house have significators in their chart. Okay. So the significator of the fourth house, which is here, is Mars. Now, the name of it is called Atma Karaka. But the reason why it's called the significator is because the fourth house is the house of land. I'm only going to mention the ones related to Mars. The fourth house, this house here, is the house of land, is the house of real estate. So what does that mean? That Mars represent also land. That's the reason why Mars become a significator of the fourth house. What are the other significators of the fourth house? Venus. Why? Because Venus represent luxuries. What luxuries do you experience in the fourth house? Fourth house is known as your home. You have many different luxuries in your home. You have a bed, a fridge, AC. Venus represents glass. You have windows, you have a kitchen, you have television, you have things to entertain yourself. So each house has different significators. So because Mars is a significator or Atma Karaka of the fourth house, that means it aspects four places from itself. So what else we know about the home? The home is the place where we want to protect. We keep the doors locked, we keep the windows closed. Right. So wherever the Mars is, four places from itself, you will always want to protect that thing. So if we go from one, two, three, four, that means that this Mars is always looking to protect their siblings, their neighbors, and I will also throw in partner, as in relationship partner, because the significator of relationship is there. They're always looking to also protect their opinion. This is the kind of person where they may be a bit cold and callous when it comes to sharing their opinion. They want to make sure that they're heard. But early on in the beginning, they would have difficulty doing this, sharing their opinion. It's something that only later on in life they end up experiencing being able to do. Why? Because the 12th house is the house of losses. So because these two energies are being moved to the house of communication, what ends up happening? Trouble communication in relationships, trouble communication with friends or people that they grew up with. And Saturn is a very karmic planet. It originally rules this house and this house. And what did I say about this house? It's a karma house. So it's bringing karma into communication. 12th house is also the house of losses. So it's bringing loss of speech to the third house. So you can see now how it start connecting. But you need to have all the basics. Okay. Then we'll go over one more aspect of Mars because Mars has one more aspect. Mars aspect 8 places from itself. 8 places from itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right here. Which means that whenever this person gets into a relationship, whether it's business partnership or relationship, that's where they experience the most transformation in their life. They experience the most transformation. Now, transformation doesn't have to mean good or bad. One thing that's very important to note, and whether it's cosmology, Vedic astrology, Ayurveda, Vastu science, Feng Shui, there's no such thing as good or bad. It's only good or bad based on the person's lifestyle. If they interpret it as good or bad. So can be several different things here. Transformation can be and again, Mars is the most violent planet. It's coming from the eighth house. The kind of transformation that is brought in the eighth house is things like sudden events, sudden ups and downs, unexpected events, secrets, things of that nature. What you're seeing here is the energy of Mars and Saturn brought to here. So, on a basic level, if a person gets into a relationship, for example, it may end up being a more of a cold relationship. It may not be the kind of relationship that they want here. This shows me right here, this is Libra, also known as Tula in Sanskrit. This shows me that a person, the kind of the partner they want. They want a partner who's their best friend. They want a partner who they can go and do things together, activities together, communicate with each other, go work out together, travel together, things of that nature, stay fit together. But what they end up getting is this. We end up getting a relationship that's a bit more cold, where in front of people, it may seem like everything is great, but behind closed doors, everything is not great. Okay. So that's how we'll interpret that. Now I'll move on to the next chart. Monica, can you give feedback on that? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Now, another note that I want to give as we go to the next chart. The reason why we're using this particular chart, the diamond chart, I'm sure you guys seen the square one. That is known as the South Indian chart. For me, I use the North Indian chart. And the reason why is because whoever Jupiter in their chart is dominant. If their Jupiter and the chart is dominant, more dominant than their Venus, then it's easier for them to read the South Indian chart. If their Venus is more dominant in their chart, they're more likely to read the North Indian chart. So for me, my Venus is more dominant than my Jupiter in my chart. So naturally, I gravitate and easily read the North Indian chart. And it's also just easier to read in general. for even beginners because all of the houses always stay the same. The ascendant is always in the same place. It's always here. When it comes to the square one, the South Indian chart, the ascendant can be in four different places. So that one takes a bit of a learning curve to get. Okay. So now we're going to go over this one next. Let me just confirm and see. Wait, let's see here. Okay, JD, we're going over your chart. So this is JD's chart. Okay. Do you, anyone, spit out anything about anything that interests you in the chart here? Anything that seems interesting to you, whether it's the planet placement or eighth. Eighth? Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Again, eighth. Oh, okay. That's from the same person. Okay. All right. We'll do eighth. Eighth house. Um, that's a bit of a personal house, but you know what? I have an idea of what I can mention on a basic level. I'll say this on a basic level. Okay. This is the kind of placement. If you're looking at and to know where the eighth house is, let me just draw that out so you guys get used to it. And I'm gonna draw it here. This is the first house. This is the second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12. Let me fix this one. Eight. There we go. There we go. Some reference. So the eighth house. This shows me, I'm going to be very blunt, 'cause we're all adults here. This shows me a person who gets their emotional nourishment from sex. Okay. Because what we have here, this right here, is the house of relationships. So there's a thing in Vedic astrology called Bhavat Bhavam, which in English means the relationship between the houses. Okay. So in this house is the house of relationship. This is the house of your partner. The outcome of that, the relationship that this eighth house has with the ninth house, is that when you require a partner, you then most likely end up activating this house. Now, the different things that this house, the eighth house, symbolize is your partner's bank balance. So, for example, a person with this kind of placement, like JD, will get their emotional nourishment from their partner's bank balance. They may be from time to time a bit more dependent on the bank balance of the partner. And because Mars is here, they may even pay extra attention towards the bank balance of the partner. This is the kind of placement where they may want to micromanage the partner's spending, for example. What you're spending here, what you're spending there, things like this. But this is also the house of your partner's family. Because again, if this is your partner and this is your partner's first house, because this is your partner's body, they're across from you, they're reflecting, they're a reflection of you, then this makes your partner's the eighth house their second house. I didn't go over the meaning of the houses, but that would be too much to go over in one sitting. But the second house. So this shows me that you get your emotional nourishment and there's a lot of attention put towards your partner's bank balance. But also a lot of passion, energy, and strength towards the sexual aspect. And the reason why I say sexual aspect is because the sexual organs exist in this house. Okay. The knees exist in this house. The stomach and spine exist here in the fifth house. Your intestines exist in this house. Your face exists in this house. This is where you can start looking and seeing, okay, um, she most likely has beauty marks, for example, because Venus is in this house. She most likely has beauty marks around her eyes, ears, or arms or wrists, or around the collarbone area, for example. Oh, Mars is here. Mars is the most violent planet. What does this mean? Many times I have seen that this could have created some kind of sexual trauma because again, Mars is the most violent. So Mars, because it's the most violent, no matter who it wants to befriend, if it tries to befriend someone, just by hugging them and saying, "Hey, I want to become your friend," Mars ends up hurting them. It's its nature. It's like if he has spikes all over his body, it's the nature of Mars. So Mars, we're based on where it sits, it brings cuts, burn, or bruises, or some kind of, damage in that area. Another thing I will say that this person gets emotional nourishment from learning secrets, learning occult information, like astrology, for example, or other kind of mysticism information. They love that. And another thing I have seen with this kind of placement is that a person loves emergencies. This is the kind of person that will tell you they don't want to be in some kind of intense situation. But the moment some kind of intense situation happens, their purpose just skyrockets because they feel useful. And that's where the emotional nourishment come in. They feel most useful during emergencies, during intense situations. This is the kind of placement where I could see people, not saying that this is what you do, but just in general, this is something where I could see people doing like EMS or driving the ambulance or something like that, for example. But there is a strong energy here of again staying home because cancer is here. Cancer is here of staying home and doing research, diving deep into hidden secrets, secrets the way that's kept from the government and things of this. I work in security because of the clarity I gain in intense situations. There we go. There's a confirmation. Thank you, JD. I tend to mother and carry my partner a lot and buy everything I can to keep finances separate, but that might be the case in the sexual aspect for sure. Work security and homeless shelters in Denver. Now I'm an information officer. Yep. Intense situations. Okay. And again, this is without my notes. This is all just through sadhana didashti. And also the basics. As I told you the text before, the combination of the system and intuition that's developed. All right, let's go to the software for the other two charts. I saw your information, Dawn. I'm getting it now. There we go. All right, let's put that in before we start with that. An elevated consciousness. Can you tell me if you are here? Because maybe you have the same name in the Zoom. So 1969. 1969. Time. Let's see here. 5:30. Philadelphia, PA. Right? I think that's August 2nd, 1969, 5:30 p.m. Um, I see you guys favoring the Leo sign in the chat there. Luckily, if you guys love Leo, that's a great thing for all of us because all of us have Leo. You see this number five here? That's Leo. I go to the other chart. See this number five here? That's Leo. We all got it. And there's also a misconception about a house that it's quote unquote empty because in there. That's not true. The house isn't empty. Each sign has a ruling planet. Right. So if you want to know what's going on in this house, you look at the dispositor, is what we call it. The dispositor of Leo is in this house. Sun is here. And then you will see, okay, what's the energy that's here that's being brought there? If you're looking at Scorpio, for example, right here, you wouldn't only look at the dispositor of Scorpio, but you would also look at the zodiac sign associated with that planet as well and see how that energy is affecting that house. Okay. They're also signs. Yep. Ah, okay, Carrion. I'll change that. Thank you for the update. I'm still gonna put AC. I don't have a last name, and I may get another person with the same name. So, okay. All right. So let's see here. Carrion. All right, guys, go ahead. What's out to you? We have these two charts, and then we'll be done, and we'll start the moon in sixth. All right, let's look at that. Moon in the sixth. You remember which house it is? That's pretty good. You remember. I wonder if I can draw on the software. I've never done that before. Let's see. I don't think I can. All right. So in the sixth, spouse chart. Spouse chart. Oh, you mean this? Okay. Navamsha. Let me explain. This chart doesn't get activated till around the age of 34. And this basically shows me what if you have acquired the fruits or what fruits have you acquired from the previous karmas and lessons and earlier in your life. But whenever we're looking at a chart on a basic level, we're still always looking at the birth chart or a person's moon chart. Okay. Okay, this is still their birth chart. Okay. So so the only thing I got was moon in the house. And then someone mentioned spouse. Okay. So I'll give you guys a little treat in terms of note wise. Let's see. So this moon, based on where it's located, it shows me that unless this person is dealing with the suffering of other people, like healing people, healing other people, serving people, they will not feel like a full moon. So let me give you a little bit of context on what moon represents in a chart. Moon represents a person's mind desires, but it also shows me what makes them feel like a full moon. It shows me what lights them up. So whenever they are healing people, taking care of people um that taking care of people's health. Not only that, this health is their own health. So for them, one of the biggest things that gives them a peace of mind is that their health is in check. As long as their health is in check, they can do anything they want. Anything. Because now they have a peace of mind. Their mind desire is taken care of. And they can go ahead. This is the kind of placements, those kind of placements where, or you don't know the placement, those kind of people where they go ahead and they give or help others before helping themselves, and they're perfectly fine. This is the kind of placement where if she did that, she would destroy herself. She needs to, at least when it comes to her health, make sure her health is in check, make sure it's good, and then help other people. If she ever skips that, it won't be good for her. I'll finish the moon because that's the first one I was mentioned. What about Rahu and Mars in the 10th? Yikes. What's yikes about that? There's nothing wrong about that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Rahu and Mars basically just shows me that you're a person who knows how to get your way when it comes to you going out in the jungle and making money. Yeah, but remember, what I said, cosmology, Ayurveda, all of those things, astrology, there is no such thing as good or bad. So when I say it's the most violent, it can simply just means that maybe you've got cut, burn, or bruises before on your knees because Mars is there and that's where the knees are. You could have got a cut, burn, or bruise on your knees. Or maybe your knees are a little weak. Nothing wrong. Your life is not over. Saturn being here is originally from the karma house. Saturn is karma. So naturally, you need to make sure you're taking good care. If you're really wanting to focus on health, like I see here in your chart, then you need to make sure that two things are taken care of, most priority. Two things take, don't even worry about retrograde. Because without even understanding the basics, it's really easy for us humans to start creating our own ideas. Oh, this is the most violent. Okay, it most likely means this. We start making connections. Saturn's in retrograde. Okay, it means this. So Saturn, wherever it sits, think of Saturn like a big fat person sitting on a couch. That's what Saturn is. Saturn suppresses everything where it sits. So if you really care about your health in order to make sure that you can help other people, what I will tell you is two things. Make sure your spine, make sure you're sitting, you must be doing something that's making this placement expressing your life. If you're sitting a lot, move more. You're not moving enough. Um, because the fifth house is the house of your spine, but it's also the house of your stomach. So your stomach may be more sensitive than other people also. It's suppressing, it's not suppressing your digestive system, but it's suppressing um, the sensitivity in your stomach. I clean houses, I move 40 hours a week. Fine, perfectly okay. But one of the but but one thing I will say is just because you clean the house doesn't mean that you're not affecting your spine. Someone can be lifting boxes all day, they still need to lift the boxes properly. Someone can be cleaning all day, they still need to make sure that they're taking time to stretch out their spine, do yoga, do stretches, something. Just because you're moving on a basic level doesn't mean that these parts of your body are not uh s- I don't know the English word susceptible. I'm close. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say to to issues. So being very mindful of what you're putting in your stomach because it's more sensitive than others. And also making sure that you take care of your spine, stretches, yoga, daily basis, especially if you're cleaning. You know, people who stand up a lot, they tend to have back problems. So just because they're standing and not sitting doesn't mean that you can't have issues with spine. Now, this doesn't mean that if you don't have any issues to look out for issues. No, it does not mean that. And it doesn't mean that it's has to happen. But if it ever does happen, then at least you know what to do. You're just more prone to it than others. And I'm only mentioning this part because I see that health is a really huge factor for you, for your peace of mind. Okay. If you can give me feedback on that, carry on. And then we'll move forward with the last chart. I hope you, my health is very important. Without it, I'm useless. Right. There's some people where they're able to eat them. You know those you have you know those people in the past. They're able to eat whatever, they're able to do whatever, and their health is fine. Right. But there may be something else in their chart where they have to tend a lot of put a lot of attention to, you know? All right. So we'll go over the last chart. Let's see. All right. Now we're going over Dawn's. All right, perfect.
Recording in progress.
Perfect. Okay. Just pause. Okay. So now with Dawn's chart, I was going over Carrion's chart. So the people who got the VIP pass so that they can get their chart read, it would have been on the page after you registered. If you went on the page after you registered, you would have seen that you would have been able to. And the reason why I'm doing this is because of time. It's just time management. That's all it is. Because if I'm doing 10 different people, mini readings and using it for education, it could be a long time. And originally, but you know what? I already decided I'm gonna do a class every week. So in addition to the education, the Glimpses Vedic Academy, where I'm gonna be pumping out a video every week, maybe sometimes two videos a week for you guys to start learning and being able to start reading charts and everything. Um, I'm also gonna be doing the class every week, once a week, every Wednesday. I may do it a different day because there's some people in different time zones when they want to join and they weren't able to, but okay. So now we're doing dawn. All right. So everyone, go ahead. What first thing I'll take whoever says first, what pops out to you the most in the chart when you first see it? And this is not me just asking you because I'm lazy, right? 'Cause I don't want to choose myself. I'm asking you this because whatever you pick up, whatever that you catches your attention first, you're exercising your intuition this way, even though you can't tell immediately like what's going on in the chart. Venus in the seventh. Okay. Venus in the seventh. So what do we know about Venus? Venus is all about legacy. Venus represents not only beautiful spouse. No problem, Karian. I'll message you, okay? You said you wanted to join the Vedic Astrology School, right? If so, I'll send you the link afterwards. I'll send it directly to you. Thank you for being here. So Venus is, yes, it's spouse and things of that nature, but Venus represents legacy. It represents the legacy that they want to leave here on planet Earth. Okay. And it also is beauty, love, relationships. Okay. So it being in the seventh house, first things first, is a person will end up having lots of love, passion, and desire for communication and writing and dramatic arts, acting. Okay. They're really, really creative, very, very creative. And this is the kind of person that may be really good at like marketing, sales, sports. Um, I mean, originally Gemini, because this is Gemini that's here. This right here is Gemini, is originally coming from the third house. So why did earlier I mentioned that um Monica would want a partner who is doing physical activities with them? Because physical activity. The third house is the kind of house where you want to go to the gym and work out. So that means that it basically shows a person who has the capacity or ability to use their body very well. Okay. And because of this, you see that they themselves will end up being somewhat physically active or they know how to use their body well. I have seen strippers with this kind of placement, Venus and Gemini, and other professions, which I won't mention right now, but they're really good at using their body, but they love to be creative. Okay. And one of the things that's very interesting is that it being in the seventh house, your creativity, your desire, and your ability to learn about relationships becomes comes through having relationships itself. Like for example, me, I have Venus in the first house. Naturally, I already have some kind of innate ability to understand relationships. And I learned already how to be in relationships before I was ever in a relationship. And that also includes just platonic relationships too, but also partner relationship. You can have Venus in the ninth house. That means you learned how to have relationships through your father. Your father taught you. If you had it in the fourth house, your mother taught you. If it was in the fifth house, the school taught you. If it was in the sixth house, the people that whether it's criminals, healing people, helping people with obstacles, having a daily routine, through that, you learned how to have a relationship. So it's different for everyone. It's not like I'm saying something generic, it's specifically to you. One thing I will say though is every single planet represents something different. As I said, moon shows me what gives you a peace of mind, what makes you feel like a full moon. Venus. Venus is like the alcohol. Remember, it's luxury, it's the physical luxury. Venus is like the alcohol. Rahu, which I have the mouse right here, Rahu is like the intoxication of the alcohol. Venus shows me, again, if I mention alcohol and Venus is luxury, what does it do? It brings people back to life. Venus has the ability to bring people back to life. And some of you may have heard this story. Venus, Shukra, when he was in the human body, his father asked him to go and he wanted to test his obedience. So he told him to go and kill his mother. He went to go ahead and kill the mother. He brought back the head. The father said, when you kill the mother, I will give you any boon that you want, meaning wish. So the father asked him, what wish do you want? Now that I tested your obedience. He said, bring my mother back. That's the wish that he asked for. So even if you take spirituality out of it, even if you take astrology out of it, there's a time period every year when Venus is completely invisible. If you guys didn't know, there's a time period where Venus is not visible by any telescope. It's completely disappeared, and then it reappears. That shows you that power of death and rebirth, being able to bring things back to life. So remember earlier I mentioned one of the luxuries in the home. One of the significators in the fourth house in the home is Venus. Why? Because those things bring you back to life. You're too hot. You go to the fridge to get yourself something cold to drink. You turn on the AC. It's bringing you back to life from feeling dead and hot. But it's also entertainment. You're bored. So you go and you turn on the TV. Another luxury. You're cold. You go ahead and go and uh, go in your closet and put on some warm clothes. Venus is luxury, but Venus shows you whatever is a luxury, Venus shows me what brings you back to life. So ultimately, what am I trying to say here? Whenever you are in a relationship, it is always the partner that's bringing you back to life whenever you are in a low mood, depressed, or sad. And if you don't have a partner, then it's always your siblings, friends, or neighbors that are bringing you back to life whenever you are depressed or in a low mood. That is what Venus is doing in the seventh house. Yeah, you look at seventh house, you think that it's all about relationship. It's much more than that. That brings you back to life. Other things that brings you back to life is business partnerships, meeting new people. Whenever you're meeting new people, you're bringing yourself back from the dead, bringing yourself back to life. And just through meeting new people, you end up learning how to have relationship, you learn how to love, whether it's romantic relationship or just meeting new people. Actually, how I met Dawn was through her meeting new people. and trying to have business partnership. So when she saw my message, she thought I was in the US and I can come and teach at the place that she has. So it's all about business partnership. I mean, apart from the other stuff I mentioned. Does that also indicate being a sapiosexual? Um, let me check because I don't I've heard of it before, but or maybe you can tell me quickly in the chat, what is a sapiosexual somebody? I'm sorry, I'm not well versed in the different ah hmm let me challenge you a little bit because yes, but I think what also sexually attracts you equally or as much is a person, because remember, Venus is in Gemini in the seventh house. Now, if I look to see what kind of partner you want, I would look at what? Libra is right here. What does that mean? Libra is an 11th house. I didn't mention what the 11th house is yet. The 11th house is liquidation. The 11th house is also social networks, nonprofit organization. What does this mean? You want a person who's going to elevate your status. You want a person who knows how to communicate, who knows how to create social networks, who's also able to help you bring liquid gains. So I think this is kind of like more the definition of the title that you just have as to what sexually attracts you. This is like the definition of it. I see it right there. I think it's like naturally, in order to do those things, the person needs to have some kind of intelligence, at least some skills, some intelligence, right? And one more thing before we finish this off here, and you can respond to what I just said. Another thing that brings you back to life is when you're learning new skills. Because Gemini coming from the third house is the house originally the house of learning how to use your hands. Third house is the house of eyes, ears, mouth, nose, hands, wrists, shoulders, and arms. So your ability to use your hands and your ability to learn new skills also brings you back to life. That may be one of the times where you're really motivated. Whenever you are learning new skills, especially to use um, for yourself or for business or for other people. So you can go ahead and respond back with feedback with that for me. I'm an energy healer. I use my hands. Mm, yep. And I'm sure you won't stop there. I'm sure you're going to keep learning many other things also because just because you're an energy healer, you one of the things that brings you back to life is learning new skills. So most like you already started looking into something else in order to add to what you already know, what you already learned. Okay. All right. Let's start the enrollment.